Hi, I'm Shira Carpel.
And I'm Shayna Gaunt, and we're board certified behavior analysts. At How to ABA, we provide practical resources, community, and support to ABA professionals. In each episode of our podcast, we will be having real conversations with real people, sharing real stories about ABA.
We'll share relevant strategies and actionable tips that will make us all better ABA practitioners. It's the ABA content you need that you're not going to learn in a textbook.
Okay, welcome today, Dayna Parker. Dayna is the director of ABA in a multidisciplinary clinic in Oklahoma. And she is going to share with us her journey. I know a lot of us BCBAs can relate to the grit, the time, the effort that it takes in finally getting our certification. And it's definitely not always easy. So I'm looking forward to hearing Dayna's story. And I know it will really inspire a lot of us out there who are still maybe not quite where we want to be. So welcome, Dayna.
Welcome, Dayna.
Much. Yes, I'm so excited to be talking to you guys and to just have a platform to share my story, because I think a lot of people can relate, even though it is unique to me. Hoping I can offer some kind of ray of hope to those who are in it.
Yeah, hopefully. So you had told us a little bit about your journey, and I guess it starts with how did you get into this field? I know that's going to be a long answer, but tell us about how you got into ABA and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I can't even remember how old I was. So it was 2004. And I had just gotten married, or was just about to get married. And I was in my undergrad program for elementary education at the time. And a man at my church approached me and he said, "Hey, my son has autism and I really think you should work with him. We're trying to find people to work with him and do this therapy with him." And so I thought about it. I was working at a dentist office at the time. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I should work with kids because I'm an elementary education major. And so he said, okay, you just have to call this number and do this training. And so I called the number and signed up for the training. And it was with Southwest Autism Resource and Research Center in Phoenix, Arizona. And they put me through a training, and it was about ABA. And I had the most amazing trainers. I still keep in touch with one of them, seen them at conferences and things, which is really kind of neat considering how long ago this feels like it was. And so I went through the training, and then they handed me a binder and had programs in it and said, okay, go in the home and help this kid. And it was great because a lot of the parents too had gone through a similar training that I did. And so together we kind of were able to create a plan for their child. And at the time you could also do respite with your clients. And so I was also providing respite for this child while the parents had date nights and whatnot. So I really kind of became part of their family, felt like a nanny therapist. I know you can't do that really anymore with all the rules and dual relationships, but at the time, that's kind of how it was. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then shortly after I started working with that little guy, they set me up with some other clients, and I just grew to love it and actually changed my major from elementary education to special education.
I love that story. And so often as ABA professionals, we get almost thrown into the field without even knowing what it is, right? Oh, well, you just need to do this. Just go through this little short training. I'm not quite sure what it's about, but at the end of it, you get a certificate, or, oh yeah, you can muddle your way through, and, someone's going to come visit you in a couple of weeks from now and, give you some more tips, but then you're on your own again. And then you can, go back to working in this kid's basement and figuring things out. And if you've got questions, well, good luck.
Right. And living that and being in the role I am now, it's funny how most of the RBTs we hire, which we can talk about here in a bit, they don't really know what they're getting into. And we try to do as best of a job to explain what this is, provide some shadowing, and we send them videos. Okay, this is what it is. Do you want this job? And even then, I think they sign up not really knowing exactly what this is, but most of them, I will say, at least with Peak, have grown to love it and have stuck around since they were hired. So,
yeah, you kind of have to love it to do this job.
Yes, exactly. But it's crazy because then, after I changed my major to special ed, I was like, okay, I'm going to be a special ed teacher. And I pursued that. And so once I started student teaching, I resigned and stopped working with the clients. But, ABA was always in my life and I always had that background. And so I think it helped me be a better teacher. And I taught for several years. And then my husband and I moved around a little bit with his job. And I ended up being a stay-at-home mom for a couple of years with my daughters, which is really great. And it was just such an honor and privilege to be able to take that time for that. But as I was telling you guys before, my husband was like, okay, you need to get your master's or something because you seem a little bored. And so one night, he and I just looked up master degrees and, I'm from Arizona. And so we found a master's program from Arizona State University that was a master's in special ed with an emphasis in ABA. And I was like, all these three things are me. And we were living in Las Vegas at the time. And so I was like, this is a sign, this is meant to be. And so I signed up for that master's program and began studying and taking courses. And in one of the courses, things had already progressed in ABA from when I was working with it. Cause I remember like writing a paper on like a no prompt method or something. And that was kind of an old error correction, right? There was new ways that people were talking about. And I was like, man, I better get back out there because things have changed so much and I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. And so I found a company in Las Vegas that was providing in-home ABA and, called them and applied for the job and got the job and had a couple clients. And then had the most amazing BCBA then. Like, I feel like when I think about who I am as a BCBA, it's her that I've kind of become. Many of us have different supervisors and there's always that supervisor that you're like, okay, that's who I want to be. And she's definitely one of them. And I've been blessed with lots of mentors and supervisors in my life, but she definitely sticks out more than the rest. Probably because of her encouragement and her just laid back presence. It was really what I needed at the time because I felt like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. And she just really helped me to relax. And so I did that, for probably about a year. And then my husband says, oh, I want to move to Oklahoma. That's where I'm from. And I want to raise my kids there. And I thought, okay, let's do it. Was ready for a change anyways. It's kind of hard to live in Las Vegas after 2 years. It gets a little old. It's fun to visit, but living there is
I heard it was 4 days, not 2 years.
For some people, yes. For us, we lasted 2 years. But I will tell you, we had the time of our life. Like, just talking about that a little bit, we got to see Elton John, Shania Twain, Celine Dion for free.
Not bad.
Wow.
They had to fill the seats and we knew people who worked there and we're like, hey, can you guys find a sitter and come fill these seats? It's like, yes. And so it was great. It was awesome. And then we even randomly, a friend of my husband's from high school came to Vegas to elope. And so we went to her wedding and I was like, now we've done everything.
Now you can leave.
Check. Okay, let's go to Oklahoma.
Yeah, it was time. And really, I tell this story too. It's like with my daughter, she was learning to read. She's kind of an early reader. So at age 4, she was reading a lot of the signs and some of them weren't really something I wanted a 4-year-old to be reading. And so that was kind of my sign too, like, maybe this isn't for us. It's just because sometimes I can be a little overprotective as a parent. But yeah, so then we moved to Oklahoma and there was literally like one job in ABA. And this was in 2014. And so this is 10 years after I had started in the field. And I'm thinking, one job? Now, Oklahoma is a lot smaller, than Phoenix, where I, was from and had started my career. But I was just amazed. And so the insurance mandate hadn't happened yet. We didn't get that until 2016. And so that was a huge part of that. And so I, worked at that job and, just didn't really feel right about it. Just wasn't for me. It was like far from my house and I was just kind of struggling. And, we know RBTs, they got to be like in shape and young, right? I mean, not to judge, but some of this is hard work. And so I was not as young as I once was 10 years before. And I was like, man, this is tough work. And so I was trying to look for someone to give me those supervision hours, right? And so I can't remember how many were on the list in Oklahoma, but it was not much. I want to say it was 50 something. So in the whole state, we had like 50 BCBAs. And I remember one night just writing all the names down, Googling them, getting their emails, and just cold calling. And if any of them are listening, they may remember little Dayna Parker calling them and just asking what options were out there. And at the time, there just wasn't a lot of options. And especially, it was like, oh, well, we're not really doing RBT stuff. So just call us when you're a BCBA, or we work at the university. And unless you're a student, we can't give you your hours. And so it was like so frustrating. And then one day I called this lady, and she happened to be the special ed director of the school district that I actually lived in. And she was also a BCBA. And she said, well, if you come teach, I can supervise you and get you those hours, which was amazing. And so even though I had told myself previously when I lived in Las Vegas, I'll never teach again, I found myself back in the classroom. But it was great. And she came out weekly, and we met, and it was really great to see like ABA in the classroom, because before I had done ABA in the home and kind of used ABA in my classroom, but now I had someone to kind of show me exactly what that could look like in different, teaching techniques. And I don't know if you guys have heard of a program called Edmark, but that was really ABA based. And
Edmark reading.
Yeah, Edmark reading. And so I dove into that and got to actually train some of the other teachers in the district on it, which was such a neat opportunity. And so pursuing that. And then, after a while, I just started feeling like school wasn't for me, and the classroom wasn't for me. I wanted something different, something bigger. And, with the school districts, there's limited opportunities for growth, and so it was like, okay, I better look elsewhere. But unfortunately, 800 of my hours that I had accrued didn't count when I was, supervised. And this is just, I take ownership of that too, because it was kind of, both of our faults in a sense, because, it's important that your supervisor takes this 8-hour supervisor course before supervising. And she had not done that. And so I didn't check. And then one day I did check, and it was kind of 800 hours too late. And so that was like a big defeat, because if you think about, I've been in the field 2004, not that I had been pursuing this, but it was like, oh my gosh, 800 hours is a lot. Like that's over half of the hours that you needed at the time, because I needed 1,500.
Well, that when you saw the just there, it was just, you've already done more than half. It's the finish line. It's almost there.
Right. And not counting all the ones. Yeah. Cause even when there was hours that also didn't count that I had done because I didn't work at the company long enough, so it's like, I have done even more than 800 hours. And even when I, it was in the field, I have been doing this, and now I can't count it. And so that was really a big defeat. And I was like, I just don't know what I'm going to do. And so, being a teacher, I had the flexibility of working in the summers, and I had found a company that was willing to hire me for the summer because they had some kids increasing hours. And so it totally worked out that I could do that. And once I was working with that client, so this is, 2016 now, probably, I was like, you know what, I want out of the classroom, and I'm going to, pursue this. And thankfully I was able to get hours. And so I kind of left teaching, and I had like 300 hours left to get. But I wasn't a BCBA, and so it was so hard to find a job where it could be full-time with benefits, because that's what I needed. And, someone who's willing to hire this person who is so close to the finish line, but not there, because that's a big risk, right? Like, what if I hire this person and they never pass the test? Or what if I hire this person and they really don't know what they're doing? And so I found this company that it was a nonprofit, and they had a child development center, and they had taken in a lot of kids with challenging behaviors. And so they had a BCBA work there before, and who wrote FBAs and behavior intervention plans for these child development teachers. And I thought, well, I could do this. And you don't need a BCBA to do that, And so I applied, and I just told them hey, I'm 300 hours away, but I need to work somewhere where I can accrue these hours. And so they took the time to find someone to contract to supervise me. And so they took care of me, and I'm so grateful to them. And I was there for a bit. And thankfully I passed my test after those 300 hours. And I'm really glad because that supervisor really kind of wrapped everything up for me. Like she had instilled in me a lot of leadership principles, because now I was in a role where I was dealing with a lot of people, and that can be challenging. You don't learn that in grad school, these people skills.
No.
So she really empowered me to just be a confident leader, and confidence is something I kind of always struggled with. But it was really neat just to see how she kind of wrapped everything up for me. And I'm really grateful to her too. And then, so then once I passed the test, that job had a lot of change in leadership for that organization. And so I got my first BCBA job at a clinic. And here in Oklahoma, after that insurance mandate happened in 2016, it was like all these companies started popping up. And opportunity just grew. And I was like, man, if they could have just been here 3 years ago, it would have been a lot different. But yeah, so I became a BCBA. And then I feel like a month later, I was a clinical director of a company. And I'm not sure I was really ready for that role, but they thought I was, but it was hard. And something I was also thinking about is when I think about my supervision and like different jobs, it's like you have to fight for equipping yourself. You have to go out and find it. For me anyways, that's what I had to do. It wasn't handed to me. I wasn't necessarily coddled and developed, in one company and raised up. It was like, I had to go out and find, okay, I need this. And thankfully some things did just kind of come and fall in my lap, but it was like, I had to go out there and fight. And so I had to learn how to be a clinical director and a BCBA at the same time, which is really hard. And there was a lot of tears, and there's a lot of people I turned to, and it was tough. It was really tough. And, I left that job as well, because, and, this is probably another topic for another day, but a lot of these companies nowadays are popping up left and right. And it's hard because they're putting people who should not be, clinical directors in those spots. And so quality kind of suffers, development suffers, and things like that. And so I wanted to find maybe a company that was smaller, where the focus wasn't rapid growth and rapid expansion, because I was like, that's not me.
Yeah, you're so right. I think that's a lot about what we hear, even with, the people that are part of our community or that use our resources, is that, I was thrown into this field and I had no idea what I was doing. And all of a sudden I'm a clinical director and there's nobody supporting me. And there's definitely a gap in the field in that, we always say supervision doesn't end when you pass the exam. It's almost like your journey just begins. There's so much more to learn after that. So it's so important to access those resources. And I also love what you said about, having to look for those opportunities. I mean, we've done our share of supervising other candidates who are working towards their BCBA. And what I always tell them when they sign on with me is, I am not going to look for you. I'm not, my job is too busy to think of like, what can I help you? Obviously I want to help them, but I just don't always think of it. I said, the only way you're really going to be successful is you're looking for those opportunities. If you're here and you're committed and you're not waiting for me to call you to come in to observe this assessment, you need to be there and you need to be asking and advocating and looking for those opportunities. And I find that those people will end up making the best BCBAs because it's such an important skill set. And so that's really important to anyone who may be now getting their supervision hours. That advice is advocate for yourself and get yourself the experience that you need, because as amazing as your supervisors can be and your mentors can be, and it's important to have them, they can't always know what you need, and you need to know what you need.
Yes, because really you're the only one thinking about you. And I mean, I'm a people person. I think about others a lot, and that's that is great advice. And that's the exact advice I just gave my recent supervisees is like, you need to take ownership, because I look back at those missing 800 hours and I was relying on someone else, to trusting, and And that was a big mistake. And so now I'm like double checking. I'm like, double check those hours, like you got to advocate for yourself. And that's the thing, we have people who pass the test, which I was one of those people who had never done a VB map or an ABLES before. Okay. And it's like, wow, you can pass the test without taking that. Well, depending on where your experience is and who your supervisors were, yeah, it can happen. And so I think it's like almost like you have to think about what BCBA do you want to be? And then that's who you try to find and learn from. And if you think, oh my gosh, I've never seen my supervisor interact with a parent before, okay, go to them and ask them, when are you meeting with the parent? I'd love to observe.
Exactly. I need to know, when you heard that those 800 hours weren't going to qualify and you're like starting back at the beginning and having to do this all over again, like what made you continue? What gave you like that drive, like to really commit?
That's a great question. And something in me, like I just knew I wanted to be a BCBA so bad, and I'll like tear up. Because I don't know, like I just wanted it so bad. And so I was willing to do anything. And I'm so grateful that I didn't give up, because I definitely could have, even just talking to you and you asking this question, it's like, why didn't I? And it's just because my eye was on the prize. And, people look at me and I'm like this, people person, I'm sensitive, I'm soft. But man, I look back, I'm like, I have some drive, that's pretty amazing. My house is usually a mess. I seem very scattered most of the time, but when I have my eye on something, I can get hyper focused, and that's what it was. It was just this hyper focus, and I was willing to do whatever it took. And even if it meant changing jobs, kind of quite a few times in that time span, because I knew what I wanted, and I just wanted it so bad, because those letters mean so much, because it meant that I could help kids and I could help their families. And I just love ABA and the whole work that we get to do and the life change that it can mean for a family and for a person. And what's been really great now in my new role is, I'm not as in the families anymore. My client list is actually shrinking as I have more admin and operation stuff to do, which I love this part as well. But it is kind of something sad in me. But what's great is now I get to like empower and lead others to do that. And, when I talk to my boss just kind of about, shrinking my caseload, he's like, well, think of it like the width, because now you're not just helping your client list, you're helping these 4 BCBAs with their client list, and the reach is greater. And I just keep thinking about, okay, yeah, that reach is greater. And it's just expanding. So
that's amazing. I can so relate to that because I also came through education. So we have that in common with the special education. I was in the classroom, but also like keeping your eye on the prize. Like I only started my BCBA journey when I had 3 little kids. I already had a previous career as a teacher. And I just remember like my husband would work all week, and Sunday mornings I would be like, hey, these kids are yours. My youngest was less than 1. And I would leave so that I could take my coursework and study and get all that done. And I questioned, like, what was I even thinking? Like, how did I do that? And like you said, like when you want something and you really want it bad enough, like it was never a question to just not do it. So I love that you were so driven and really committed. And these are the types of, BCBAs that we need in the field.
Right. Because we know this job is hard. Like there was actually a time, and I kind of mentioned it to you guys earlier, like that I did want to quit because it was hard. And I was at a job where, cases just kept getting increasingly higher. And then I was also dealing with some extended family member issues. And I was like, I can't do this. This is not good. And I found myself almost mentally paralyzed, like not wanting to leave the house, which is, pretty significant. I wasn't just in a bad mood or sad. It was pretty, I was in distress really. And I called the company HR person, and I was like, I need some time. And they were so gracious and great. And so I took that time. And again, that drive in me, I was like, I can't stay this way. I got to get better. And so I like saw a counselor, listening to several like burnout podcasts, like not even just ABA related, like just, I want to say like Ken Coleman had a podcast on it. And I was just at that point where I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? And to think that I had worked so hard to become a BCBA, and now I'm thinking I don't want to do it anymore. And my backup plan was sell real estate. I was like, I can sell real estate and be a real estate
like polar opposite. If you could get any further away from kids,
right? Just don't want to work with kids. I knew I liked working with people, and I do love looking at homes, and so I thought this is what I could do. And to be a real estate agent, it's just some classes and a test. Oh, been there, done that, so I can do that. But through that journey, it was amazing because I'll start tearing up again, guys. That's just who I am. I got to really know myself and what I needed. And I thought that I was like a misfit BCBA in a sense, because I wasn't necessarily meshing with some of the colleagues at the time, and the company too. I wasn't meshing with them. And again, the rapid expansion thing, it's just not for me. And anybody who knows me and has ever talked to me has heard me say that. I just am not a fan. I'm a fan of expanding ABA, and I will say rapid expansion, there has been some good things come out of it. Kids are getting services who never got services before or could, which is great. But it just concerns me at another level. But anyways, I was really struggling, and it was amazing because kind of after, like right as I was coming out of this burnout and feeling confident and made decisions with that extended family member situation, I was approached by a psychologist in the area, and he said, I want to start a company, and I want you to start be in charge of the ABA program. And it was like, I got to know myself, and it was like, this is what I need. I want to work for a smaller company, and I don't want a lot of bosses. I'd like to be in charge. I can do this. And I wanted to start developing more as a leader, and knew that it was just time. It was time in my life to step into a role like that. And so I left that company I was with and started Peak Behavioral Health. And my first day was June 1st of last year. So I've been here almost a year. They started a little bit before that, but I mean, we helped write the handbook. I made treatment plan templates, which was really kind of neat because I never got the opportunity to do that before or be a part of it. And really, because we are just starting and up and coming, our BCBAs do kind of get to be a part of everything because we're all learning together and helping each other out, and we all collaborate really well. The personalities here are great. And some of those bigger companies, it's like they just got to fill the seat, right? But here at Peak, it's like we're looking for the right person. It's not just a person. And so it's just really been an amazing place to work. And I haven't felt the burnout, since then. And I've been really cautious of that. And, that work-life balance is so important. And it's been nice. It's like, it's okay. I can turn this off. But I think it also starts at the top with the leadership, because my boss has great work-life balance, and he makes sure, that he does. And that makes a big difference, because the pressure is all I put pressure on myself. It's coming from me. It's not coming from anyone else. And so I need to just step back and be like, can this wait till tomorrow? Yes, it can. And I'm going to wait.
I love that your story has a happy ending.
I know, right? Me too. And it just keeps getting happier. Like just each day I come in, I am so thrilled. Like we just had a new BCBA start this week, actually. And then we have another one starting in a new area that we get to serve Oklahoma. And, with Oklahoma being kind of behind the times of ABA, it's like someone just said it was the Wild West of ABA. And to be able to go to a new area is like super exciting.
I love that. And I love that through this whole personal journey. Thank you so much for sharing, because it is so important to get that journey out there, not just because you want to get it off your chest, but because there's so many other people that have the same type of journey that you do. You're not alone when you say you suffer from burnout. You're not alone when you say, oh my gosh, I didn't check my supervisory hours and I didn't get these ones didn't qualify, or, this happened in my career and it was a setback for me. There's so many people who experiencing that. So thank you so much for sharing that. But it's also great, like Shira said, that you have a happy ending, and that, through this whole process, you've discovered yourself. It sounds like, you said at the beginning, you didn't have the confidence, and now it's like, wow, like you've developed that confidence. It sounds like it anyways. You wouldn't be on the podcast if you didn't.
That's right. That's right. I mean, I'm sure I have a lot of work to do still, but it's amazing
we all do.
how far. That's right. And that's the thing. We never should feel like we've arrived, right? Because then we stop growing and learning. And so I can definitely grow and learn, but I feel like I've come far, especially just in the last few years. And I'm 38 years old now. And so the 30s are amazing. And I like each decade gets better. So I'm like, what will my 40s be like? And yes, I get more wrinkles, but man, it feels good. Like I wish I looked like I did in my 20s, but have the confidence I had in my 30s, right?
Wisdom comes with age, definitely. I've learned that too.
Right.
What would you say to someone who maybe is right now struggling with that burnout, like where you were before this opportunity, or maybe they, failed the exam a couple times, and they're feeling like really, really bad about themselves and wanting to give up? But do you have any advice for them?
I mean, my advice would be take time to step back, and hopefully you have a company that was as gracious as mine. And even if you have to like step back without pay, I mean, if you can work it out, it's definitely worth it. And really seek some counseling and listen to those podcasts. I mean, that's really what helped me. And I also turned to friends, not just BCBA friends, but also just friends to talk to and lean on. And nothing else. They just listened, and validated how I was feeling. And it takes time. I don't know how long my burnout was per se, but it wasn't like a week and I was done. Like it was a journey to kind of get back out. And really what helped me too, when I think back, you almost have to look at every area of your life. Okay, what's affecting this? And at the time, I had that extended family member issues. And then my caseload of kids was a lot of high, like severe, challenging behavior. And that was a lot for me. And that was too much. And so when I did come back, I said, I need to change up my caseload a bit. And sure enough, I got this little bitty guy who was like 3 years old, and it made a huge difference. And I feel like that little guy kind of helped get me out of my burnout, just because he was making such quick progress. And this was during the pandemic, by the way, too.
Wow.
That we were working with him. I mean, he moved through the PECS protocol faster than I've seen anyone really. And I was like, this is what I needed, because I needed him to show me that I was still a good BCBA.
Well, and you got to access your reinforcement, right? So you were saying, listen, like, what's the jewel at the end of the line? And, if you can't access your reinforcement on a regular basis, it's very difficult to continue to say, hey, I want to be in this field.
Yes. And that's perfect, because that's the thing. I wasn't accessing reinforcement in my job. And so you gotta access that reinforcement, whatever it is. And for me, it's progress with the kids. Typically, I think for most of us, it would be, but yeah, that's
and I think for me, part of what I think made me better at what I do was some of the challenges. And I think it was like, if my life was so smooth and easy and I was never challenged, I don't think I would have pushed myself as hard. So I think sometimes while you're in it, it's really hard to see it that way. But if we can remember that it's these challenges that are going to make us better on the other side, better people, better practitioners, like you even explained how, you became a leader and you became a manager and you became more confident. And I think that we can look at it that way also. It's these setbacks or these challenges that are going to build us.
Because that's the thing. I probably would not be sitting here had I not experienced all that, right? And that's the thing. When things happen, you almost have a choice to go one of two ways, and you have to think about, okay, I'm going to take this and learn from it and go the right direction.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. You've got to, they're not mistakes unless you can learn from them. Right. And,
right.
You don't even call them mistakes. You call them learning opportunities. Right. And, as my mom would say, everything happens for a reason. And when you're in it at the time, you're going, I don't know what this reason is. But after the fact, and you get through it and you go, oh, wow. Like if I hadn't had that experience, or if my 800 supervision hours at that school would have counted, wow, maybe I'd still be at the school and be completely miserable because I don't want to be a teacher. Or, if those hours would have counted, counted, I wouldn't have looked for something else. And I wouldn't have found the supervisor who taught me this and this and this and this. And I wouldn't have gone out and fought for myself and advocated for this and this. And I wouldn't have met the psychologist who, put me where I'm at now and, given me the confidence to start, my own thing, et cetera, right? Everything snowballs off of each other. And it's really hard to see that when you're in the moment.
Yeah. But hang in there. I mean, just kind of, and that's the thing, we have to choose not to live in that burnout too, and kind of look more inward and woe is me. I mean, I think it's okay to live there for a little bit, and feel sorry for yourself, because I think that's part of it, but you don't want to stay there too long, and you got to just look for ways out of it. And that's exactly what I had to do, is look for ways out.
You're right. You have to feel, but it's about looking ahead and saying, okay, how do I get out of this? Because you're right. It affects your whole entire life. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't there either. Like there's certain times in your life where you go through those moments of what am I doing here? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And if you're in that, because we all get in that sometimes, and that might be a day, or it might be a year, or it might be 10 years. But it's really about going, you know what, it's okay to feel this way. But what can I do about it? And, how do I get out of it so that it doesn't affect every part of my life? Like your husband, your kids, your work, your clients you work with, et cetera. You need to be able to have some energy to be able to give to them. And, it's unfortunate as, behavior analysts, we don't measure feelings, right? Feelings aren't observable and measurable, and you can't measure happiness. But we have to figure out a way to define that, because it's so true. And I mean, as much as we can talk about, feelings aren't, observable, we can't measure them. Happiness is a true thing, and there should be a measure for it, because it's huge and it's so encompassing in our lives.
Well, and you said something that actually reminds me too, like when I was in that burnout, I was working a lot and working hard, at that too. I had started saying no to the things I loved. I was too tired to hang out with my friends, and I love hanging out with friends. And I was, I get to serve at church, and I play guitar and I sing, and I stopped doing that. And so I found myself saying no to things that I actually need in my life. And so when those weren't there, things that make me happy, when those things that make me happy weren't there, I mean, that was part of it too. And so when I step back from work a little bit, or, kind of shut it off at 6 o'clock or whatever time, I make sure I make time to play my guitar. I make sure I have time. And, with the pandemic and seeing friends, that has been really hard for us extroverts, let me tell you. But I have some friends that we've started Marco Poloing and just sending video messages back and forth. And I look forward to those at the end of the day, because it fills me up. And so you got to find those things that fill you up, because you've give all day to these kids and these families. And it's exhausting. And even if you love your job, like you still got to turn it
pour
off.
from an empty cup.
That's right. It's
true.
Exactly. Yeah. Wow. I feel like we could talk forever, and we didn't even get to hear more about your current role. And I think we could probably do this, and we should do this again, and hear more about your thoughts on your current role and how you're working in a multidisciplinary clinic. And I think that's
I love that. Yeah.
But I thank you for sharing your story. Like I said, I know it will inspire a lot of people who have been there, have felt like that. I think we've all been there at some point, and it's inspiring to hear about people who have a happy ending and who have come out on the other side stronger and better for it. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Dayna, thank you so much.
Yeah.
We both did it at the same time.
I know. I'm grateful for this opportunity to share. So thank you.
Yeah. And we love being able to meet the people who are part of our community. So this is our reinforcement. So thank you for giving that to us.
Yes, I know. And if we do ever want to do this again, I would be happy to share, because I'd like to share more about how I do use, being a member of How To ABA, because it has really helped me just grow clinically as well. You're kind of like that remote supervisor, that I didn't know if I'd ever get to meet, but the resources is great. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Well, then we'll definitely do it again.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dayna. And I hope you continue to grow in your career and continue to find that happiness and that reinforcement.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for joining today's conversation. Wherever you get your podcast, please go and subscribe, rate, and review so others can find out about us too.
For more from How to ABA, including free resources and ABA materials, visit our blog at howtoaba.com. And make sure that you're following us on social media for more practical tips and updates.